Episode 150. BNY Podcast, What a Week, BNY Network. Been a long road to get here.
Couple years.
We are live. Sorry about the intro. Had a small little tech problem, but we'll work down the back end. But we're here. Jay, welcome back, man. BNY Tech, you see that? How you like that?
I love it. I got a promotion. I learned about how to negotiate my contract just a little bit ago, so we gotta have a conversation.
We've been we've been sitting here just getting gems and knowledge of the game from Samichie Thomas. Welcome to the podcast. Absolutely. How's your day going? How's the week going?
It was awesome. I had a good week. Today is my son's 26th birthday, my oldest child.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Quinn. So excited to be here and kind of share what I'm going to do if elected to Charles County's Board of Education for District 1. I'm excited to get into it, talk about my passion and why.
Yep, and once again, Rick Will back with you again too as well. Set man, moderator, host, owner, founder of BNY Network. Like I said, I got Jay with me here too as well. It's been great, just talking to you on the side, just getting here at this day. A lot of email communication back and forth, so definitely want to thank you publicly for your flexibility. I know originally we were trying to work an earlier date, but this is the primaries just opened up too as well, voting.
Yes.
So how's that? It's pretty exciting.
It is exciting. I was actually going around trying to get young people to vote, trying to get some 18-year-olds. It was their first time. Trying to see if we can encourage the young people to come out and vote. Normally people go to the general, right?
Mm-hmm.
But trying to get them interested in the primary. So I have 4 children, but I have 26. I have one that's 21 and a daughter is 18. So my 18-year-old, she's like, Mom, it's funny. The first time I get to vote for you. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, what are your friends doing? Let's go vote. Let's just take them all to vote. They can do it today.
Yay.
And they're like, we gotta vote. I'm like, absolutely. But what they said to me, interesting, they're like, all that stuff on Facebook, old people use Facebook. We don't use Facebook. So a lot of the communications that you've seen out there is not getting to, which kind of gave me a little aha moment. I was like, oh, well, put some on Instagram because that's where the young people are. And so she's like, I'm going to put some on Instagram to tell people they can go vote now. So
I would love to use Instagram as far as through OBS, but
You can.
there's a few issues we've had with that. We can work that. We're also live on YouTube and Twitch too as well. So we're a little bit all over the place to include Facebook. But hey, the story for another day. Comments real quick. First of all, how's everybody doing out there? Angela, Pascal. Quick question. District 1, what area are you representing?
So in District 1, that is kind of the back end of Brandywine, down into La Plata, some of Cobb Island. So it's probably the largest landmass probably of other district, but it doesn't have as many people as the other districts, but it is, very diverse, very rural. And so I'm excited to be able to represent some of the needs of that area. As we know, there's a little bit of a digital divide in Charles County, and I think that impacts some of the kids from a school system perspective. Like, do they have access to laptops and, internet? One of the things that I think will be really interesting is as we get more technology into the schools, how can we partner with the commissioners to make sure those kids that are down there in those areas that, are very rural will still have access to some of the digital, advances for education too.
Okay. Hey, let's get right to it. So, Misha, let's talk about your background. So, where did you get started, and why exactly are you running? What inspired you to run for school board?
I think inspired me to run is first, I have been probably a lot of parents are out there listening. Like I said, I have 4 children, so I was running around trying to be a mom, and I've done a lot of things in the county, helping other kids, also helping my own children. I am also a CASA, court-appointed special advocate for kids in the county. So I have a couple foster care kids that I had to look after and do some things like I would do for my own kids. And so as a CASA, as a mom, also looking at my neighbors and just being a concerned citizen about my community, as I looked at the way the community has changed. I've been down in Charles County since 2001. So I'm looking at how the community has changed, looking at the impacts to students, even my kids' friends. I said to myself, I think it's a good time. The Maryland Blueprint really does give us the momentum and the resources needed in order for us to transform what education looks like in the county. Mm-hmm. And so I thought I'd like to get into taking my passion and using it to really to move things forward for my community and for for young people. Young people, they're so smart. They have so much to bring. Have you seen what young kids can do with technology? And then what can we do to help them, to enable them to have a bright future? So that's why I decided to run. I'm really running on the platform of innovation in education. And when I say innovation, I don't mean just technology. I mean innovative thoughts. We can't teach kids the way we learned because they're not having to do what we had to do, right? The things that they have to be prepared for in their job and their career and their lives is very different. And so innovation in education means how can we think of different ways to make sure that these kids have a bright future.
Hey, set the table. We go right into it. Got a couple questions here. So background, you were an educator.
So I have a very background. I have a bachelor's degree in social work and education, and I have a master's degree in human resources management development, so adult education. So I've done both. Working with young people, working as a social worker, and then doing adult education and human resources. So I've been a teacher. I used to be assistant director of some daycare centers long ago. Worked as a social worker with at-risk middle school kids. And then I've also been an IEP advocate for some kids in the county. My own children one of them has a learning disability. In addition to that, for the foster care kids that I've had to support, I have to go into the schools and talk with their teachers and others about their education. So I think one of the things that I pride myself on is that if elected to the school board, I'm not just looking out for the interests of my children, I'm looking out for the interests of all children. And mostly because I've had to do that in a variety of ways. I've had parents reach out to me and just need to understand something because I understand IEPs and curriculums and, how to build goals for kids. I can make it practical and be pragmatic about it.
Okay. All right. Got a couple questions here already. Angela, with her list of questions for every school board candidate. So we'll start right at the top. So GPA. As far as extracurricular and sports.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And yourself, you play college sports too as well.
Right.
Just a quick background on that.
Yeah, I played basketball from the time I was 8 to the time I was 21.
Hey, there it is.
And
still play?
I wish I could, but my knees say otherwise. But I've also had all of my children have played sports. I had a basketball player, I had a wrestler, I had a football player, got volleyball players, but they also did other extracurricular activities. So I have a daughter who is a beautiful opera singer, and she also sings other stuff. And I had a son who was on the chess team. And I think those extracurricular activities matter. And so, I have a lot to say about the GPA and the extracurricular activities. I think if we talk about educating the whole child and we talk about what it means to give children, a microcosm of what life is like, none of us are myopically focused on one thing. I mean, we know we're adults. We gotta, pay bills and go to work and be a parent and have some community service or whatever we do. And we ask kids just focus on your GPA and that's it. And I do think GPA is important, and I do think we need to have a standard, but I think we have to provide an ability for the kids to redeem themselves if their GPA goes below the necessary GPA required to participate, right? So I'll give an example. You have a football player. That football player is playing, and they get, at the first quarter, they get an F. They can't play. Mm-hmm. The next time that player can participate in anything is the end of the very next quarter.
Now, this is a F in any particular subject.
Well, because the rule is if you have an F, if you have below the GPA, or if you've missed more than 4 days, then you can't play, right? But we have mid-quarters. We have progress reports. We have ways that we could have a student be able to redeem themselves. In addition to that, the things that make a student fail, miss a day, or too many days, or fall below the GPA, sometimes it could or could not be in their control, right? And so I think the same way we have to do in other parts of life, we should do for students, right? We should find ways that they can redeem themselves at a progress report, working with the teachers to show that they've been able to raise their grade, if they were sick and they have the absences. But if we can't teach our children grace, how can we expect it from them and for them to give it to others? So I think we have to have some kind of grace period or redemptive structure that allows students to still play, because sports and other extracurricular activities, I think they really, really well-round education for students.
I agree too as well. So GPA, I believe, several podcasts talked about set it at 2.25 as far as the
Yes.
cutoff. Do you agree with that? Would you change it?
I mean, if people feel strongly about the 2.25, and I would be willing to co-collaborate with others that are on the board to talk about it. If you're going to give me a 2.25, then give me some ability to redeem students. If you're not going to give me some ability for students to redeem themselves, then you're going to have to give some wiggle room on the other pieces. I think those are conversations that should be had with a group of people who are practical and pragmatic about looking at the GPA to, because the whole point in anything we do for policy for students, it should be for the greater good of the students. It shouldn't be because people want to be punitive. It shouldn't be because people want to, oh, we have to have a standard. Every decision that we make with the school board should be about, why do we even have school? It's for students. It should be student centric. So when we make decisions, it should be what's best for the students.
I do. I agree with that too as well. So just to be clear, as far as you're open to changing it. If I'm
open to changing it, and I'm not reticent about,
is that up or down, or
I don't think it should be any higher than it is. I definitely don't think it should be any
so you're
higher.
not gonna move it to like 2.5, 3.0,
Absolutely.
3.5.
Gotta be on the honor roll to play.
Yes.
Right, we have to be realistic. What does it look like in college?
Mm-hmm.
College is 2.0. So we have to be realistic, right? What does it look like in college? And what are we saying? At some point, GPA is very important because you have to have a measurement of what the students are doing. But I also think we need to be very careful about having students feel like they're defined by a number, right? I know a really good kid who graduated, bottom 3 in his class, went to college, and was first quarter college on honor roll. Bottom 3 in his class. And he had a big class. He went to
college?
And he went to college.
College, he get accepted too. I'm not going to ask. I ain't going to dox somebody.
But in addition to going to college, right?
Personal research.
In addition to going to college, he was on a roll. So the other thing is, I think we have to remember that education right now is very prescriptive. It doesn't allow kids to really be who they are. So different. When you turn 18, you get choices. You want a job that you don't have to get up early in the morning? You pick.
Mm-hmm.
You want to, you want to not do something, you pick. But when they're in school, there are very finite lines that kids have to parameters that they have to stay within. And there's 4 reasons. Those are 4 reasons. But I think then if we want them to stick within the parameters, then we have to make sure that we're giving them all the support necessary to be successful. Because they all don't start at the same place. None of the kids are start at the same place, right? Maybe you had 2 parents, maybe you had 1 parent, maybe you have a learning disability. Kids are so varied in what they bring to the table that then you're going to have to modulate what each kid needs in order to bring everybody up to your line of success.
So as far as the GPA goes too as well, so kid's not doing well, no sports, no extracurricular activities. How do we bring this individual back up? What kind of plan or kind of policy we like to see in place as far as that? If there's not anything there, this is for my own personal education too as well.
I think there's some incentives. What do we do at work? Everybody who goes to work, don't you get bonuses? Don't you get some quarterly performance evaluation? Don't they give awards? I think it's the same thing. I think we have to find something to incentivize kids that, and to me, if you want to play sports, that's an incentive. Like, what do you need to do in order to get back on your team? Can you still go to practice, or, can you still go to study hall with the team? And in, 3 weeks, if you have so many grades and you turn them all in, and your teacher can sign off on your progress report that if you keep on this trajectory, your grade won't be an F again, then can you be back on the team? If kids are off, can they be off for 2 games instead of the whole quarter? I think there's some ways that we could think about it. Think about it, and because after all, we want kids to be excited about learning. And I have seen lots of kids who can't play. They're angry, they're, mad, irritated, whatever, they're just taken aback by not being able to play, and their grades will plummet. So you have 1 F, then now you have all Fs. Now they're disinterested, they're disenfranchised, they don't want to come to school. And so I think we have to see the consequences of how we pour into students and what we can get out of them.
Yeah, and that's the thing too as well, that you take the kid out of sports, extracurricular activities, and where do they go at now? What fills the time?
Exactly.
Obviously, they weren't doing well beforehand. now you take it away. Will they focus more? Will they just say, you know what, I quit, that's it? So
Well, a lot of people say, well, if you weren't doing good in school, now we take away the extracurricular activities. Now all you're going to focus on is school. How realistic is that?
Come on now.
How realistic is that?
Come on now.
We got to be realistic, right? I really am the type of person that I like to have a pragmatic approach to stuff, right? Philosophical is great, but where the rubber meets the road is really what's more important. Like, is it going to actually turn out that way? Will something that you intend come to fruition? And if the odds are no, then maybe you need to rethink the best plan to get there. And the best plan is not to take things away and expect kids to focus. The best thing to do is wrap around some support services to help them focus so they can get to their goal, which is to play sports and to be a student athlete. And that's important. It's a student athlete or any extracurricular activity,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're building the whole person at that point,
and
too,
to
as
make
well.
sure it's equitable in the way it's approached, right? Because I just want to know if someone in SGA has missed 7 days, are they going to get kicked out of SGA? Do you lose being the president of SGA, a student government? Is it being applied to everybody, or is it just being applied to sports? Like, let's have transparency, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if someone has missed 10 days of school, but they were in theater and now there's a play, is someone looking at the attendance of the kids that are on the play and saying, you 10 can't be in the play because you missed 8 days of school? That's the other thing. I think a lot of people are really focused on just sports. It should be applied equitably across the board. And I think we should think about what that means for everything, French club, whatever you're doing.
So it's a solid standard across the board.
Across the board.
Gotcha.
I know some coaches on the opposite high school teams. Let me say that kid's attendance real quick. 5 days? Nah, get him up out of here. So, no, that's so just to close the loop on that, too, as well. I'm looking at some of the comments. Asia, keep monitoring them, too, as well for me.
Yeah.
So how do you is there a tutoring system that needs to be in place? Is there something more robust that should give the child more attention as far as getting their grades up? What do you recommend there? What do you see?
Well, I think that's a really good question, right? What educational academic support can you give students, no matter who they are, right? One of the things that I would like to see more of in the county is peer tutoring. They have it in the county, but encouraging kids to do peer tutoring. One of the things that I have worked with kids who have reading issues before, and one of the things that I find really, really valuable as a teaching technique is when you pair a child who's high performing in a certain area with a child who's low performing. That peer-to-peer relationship normally it will allow them to kind of meet in the middle, right? Because you have someone it's not as ominous to a kid if they have a tutor they don't know or somebody trying to help them. Maybe they feel like they're not as smart. But if it's a friend just saying, hey, let me show you how to do it, right? Then sometimes it's better. So having those peer-to-peer relationships for tutoring could help. You might have someone who can reach that child. I know I was never good at math. I get to say it out loud. I was never good at math, right? And I had a tutor come in, tell me what you don't know. And I'm like, I don't know what I don't know to even ask the question, right? And so, but when I had to learn it and then teach it to somebody else, I finally understood. And so there's different techniques you can use in order to help solidify a concept for a student. And that's one that's really good. Having students teach each other and then having a student learn something and have to teach it to another kid, right? If they can teach it to another kid, 9 times out of 10, they understand it much better than if it's just, kids are like sponges, they take stuff in, but it's, we always say if you can teach someone else, you really know it, right?
Right, there it is. So me as a high schooler, I did after school tutoring. I went to grew up PG County, went to BOE High School, and there was students from BOE State University that would come after school and they would teach us. They would tutor us in math and whatnot. And I thought that worked out pretty well. Now, as far as I'm pretty sure I'm not entirely sure. I'm not as far as that's a thing with Southern Maryland College, Southern CSM, and Charles County Schools too as well. But when you talk of peer-to-peer, and someone they know, please clean up for me. You're talking peer-to-peer, you're talking high school student to high school student.
Or you could do high school students and middle school students. If you have some high schoolers that want to walk across the street, North Point's right by middle school, have them walk across the street and tutor, right? That's also another way. And it builds self-confidence, right? It builds confidence in the one that's teaching. and it builds, some camaraderie between students, right? And young people, they're might identify better with someone else. And even, middle school students to elementary school students, if you have, you can pair those kids together. It's an opportunity to use the resources that are available to help students, right? And it doesn't always have to be in the school. It could be informal. Use the library. Kids who want to tutor, go to the library on Tuesdays. On Tuesdays, parents who want to drop a kid off and say, okay, tutor, there are other ways that we can, and this is what I mean about innovative education, right? It doesn't always have to be in the school building, and it doesn't always have to be formal. Informal stuff is as effective as formal stuff, right? Has anybody ever had a mentor, somebody you found along your career journey, and you started talking to that person and they mentored you along the way? You may not have worked with them, but you had a kindred spirit, or they, happened to be able to share it the way you learned it. So mentoring relationships are very important. Even, when new teachers come in, having an older teacher as a mentor. In fact, there are several companies around the Beltway, and even down in St. Mary's, they actually will ask their employees to go out and mentor in schools. I know Accenture does it. I know IBM does it. Booz Allen does it. They have volunteer days, and they will actually they will partner with a school and say, we'll send some people from our company to go to a school to volunteer. Those are, community resources we could use. And you have some young analysts, that are coming from a company, and they might tutor on something in the schools. So there's lots of ways that we can use community resources in order to informally help students and give them more resources. And it doesn't even cost any money, right? This is all volunteer stuff.
Well, so I'm looking at a comment from Angela. Sadly, many school systems have removed awards and incentive not to offend those who can't reach the goals. Now, I'm going to kind of twist that and use some of those words too as well. Rewards and incentives for students that do peer-to-peer tutoring. Is there something that you would like to see as far as that, or is it just volunteer and that's that?
So I think there's, something to be said for tangible and intangible awards, right? There is nothing to be, there's nothing to kind of blink an eye at when you talk about the intangible personal reward of helping someone else, right? And this is that emotional intelligence I think I talked about in one of my other interviews. You got to teach people how to pour into other people, right? These are the things that if we teach our young people to do, and we start it when they're young, they continue that, right? And so to me, the reward is saying, you helped a friend. And let's not remember, not forget, this is already happening, right? I've seen young people. I've seen my daughter on the phone talking to her girlfriends like, I didn't get that math problem. You didn't get it? Oh, no, I didn't get it. Let me help you, right? We just have to help kids see that that's so important that it can be on a grander scale, right? So, but as far as awards and rewards, I think there are small things you can do for students. I don't know if anybody remembers. I'm gonna age myself. You remember when we were kids, they if you read so many books, you get a Domino's pizza from Pizza Hut. Yeah. Does anybody remember that? You get a little pan,
little personal pan,
personal pan pizza.
And it was hitting too.
The book club.
I still eat it.
You read your books and you get your pizza. I know even Charles County Public Libraries does that, right? If you read so many books, they give things out for free. I mean, companies are giving away free stuff all the time. So, there's no shortage of being able to find a company to donate. It can be Rita's Ice Cream. Kids are food motivated. I don't know about your kids. My kids are food motivated, right? I mean, you can get donuts, Parents will volunteer and donate. And if not, we can find companies and corporate sponsors to donate. So it can be tangible or it can be intangible. But, people want to do good, but people also want to feel valued. And when you can stand up publicly and say, this is the tutor of the month, that's enough. But, we should celebrate when things are going well. So that's what I mean about reward and incentive.
Okay.
Real quick, I just wanted to kind of throw this out there. I brought it up a couple podcasts ago, too. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, the Upward Bound program. It's a federally funded program that does like tutoring and mentoring. Yep. I was actually, I'm a alum of Upward Bound. Through school and stuff. I don't know if they do that out here. Is that something they do out here in Charles County?
Well, I think that's the thing. One thing I think is really interesting, if you go into any inner city schools, you go into Chicago, you go into DC, you go into, Baltimore, they have tons of programs. And you're like, oh, why do they have those programs? And then you get out to the more suburban counties and there aren't as many programs. And I think It really is because people see the inner city as this tragic place where you just got to inject a lot of programs. I don't see inner cities as a tragic place where they need to inject programs. I see kids who need programs that become auxiliary to their academic and educational system that will help every kid, right? I don't care if you're in the middle of in country and rural areas where they have to farm, so they put programs to help those kids. Doesn't matter. Kids just need extra support, right? Because the more we give them, the more they'll grow, the better off they get a launch into life. And so the same programs that they have, like Upward Bound, they have a lot of those programs. They have grants. Department of Education has grants. Department of Agriculture has grants. Bill Gates, Millennium Gates Foundation has grants. All of those things, they're just not for inner city. They're for suburb. They're for kids. I don't care where they are. And so being on the board, if I'm elected, I really want to look around and scrounge around and take advantage of any of those grants that we can use to help our kids, no matter what it is. You know, you don't have to be, Title I or, certain economic, socioeconomic status within your community for you to be able to get these grants. Some of these grants just genuinely want to and authentically want to help kids. And so going to get those grants, I think is a valuable way for us to use resources and support the blueprint, and then be able to kind of equal the funding that'll be needed as the blueprint. They give us money, they insert money initially, but it will wane down. And how do we continue those programs? It'll be through grants and community support.
Read some of these comments too as well. Derek, what's going on with you? I'm coming back to you here in a second. Let's keep on this point. Angela, federal programs put rules in place that may not work for us. Explain that. Give me some tangible with that too as well, as far as which rules. Zach, what's going on with you?
Hey,
Friend of the podcast. Most federal funding that comes to Charles County is funneled through the state first. We don't get very much direct federal funding. Why?
That doesn't have to be the case, right? And we will always, we'll always get the funding that comes from the federal government down to local and state. But some of those grants, if you go out to grants.com, you can go look. I mean, some of those grants you can directly apply for as a local school district, right? And I think somebody else raised a question about, sometimes the rules established with a grant won't work for us. But when you apply for the grant, it tells you what the rules are. It tells you what the rules are for measuring, for applying, and then how you use the money. If it's not something, we feel that the school district collectively, the board or Charles County Public Schools couldn't comply with, then it's not a grant you should apply for. But if they are ones that don't have those kind of stringent rules, or we see that it could be of value. But that's the grant evaluation process. I have some background doing that. Working with policy and public policy regs and grants in my corporate career life. And so learning how to do the analysis of a grant, understanding how to use the grant, and then understanding what the impacts are to how you apply the grant is something that I think the school board could do more of, and also Charles County Public Schools could do more of, just to look at it as an alternate way to get funding. We don't have to do it, but I do think it's an option.
The more sources, more ways we can get money. Hey, look. What we can do for the kids. So Derek's question here. So a couple of things you said so far, as far as the board, how do they fit into these ideas? Now, as far as obviously the board, a lot of policy. Now, a lot of stuff is ultimately the role of the superintendent, but you have to vote on the things. The superintendent places forth, if I'm correct.
Correct.
So you can also bring ideas to the superintendent as well. So if you can talk on that, as far as how does the board and as far as policy and superintendent all work intertwined?
Yeah, so it is the board's responsibility to make the policy, and then it's and of course it has to be aligned with state, local government requirements and those kind of things. And then it is the Charles County Public Schools, Dr. Navarro, it's her job in order to execute that policy, right? And we have to work in collaboration with each other, hand in hand. I think that's one of the things that's a little bit of a misnomer. While everybody has their role and responsibility, it doesn't have to be siloed. It can definitely be more organic, and it can definitely be more collaborative, right? I think the collaboration is key to be successful, right? So, everybody that's running for the board, Dr. Navarro and the executive team invited us all down, and she talked about the roles and responsibility. But she was so very open to saying, if you have ideas, let me know. And, just as a parent, I have ideas. For example, I talked to her about an idea and we just talked about this, an idea for creating studios in the schools so that kids could learn, just what you
Come on
do,
now.
right?
Yeah.
Just what you do.
Come on
right?
now.
And we even talked about, talked about producers or people who have studios, small businesses that are in Charles County that will be willing to teach, tutor, after school program. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have an after school program, an extracurricular activity, if you will, that is studio design, how to make a podcast, how to direct a movie. I know Derek just did that, right? Derek, you just had a bunch of kids that all went out to, do filmmaking. But wouldn't it be great if, we had some people in the community? And so I talked to Dr. Navarro about it. She was all great about it. I even talked to her about an aviation program, right? I gave her some information. There's a guy he used to work at McNamara High School for years. He retired from McNamara in Fort Washington. He has an air school. He has an air school, and he's teaching young kids how to. And I said, Dr. Navarro, wouldn't that be great if we could have an aviation club and have the kids go and learn how to fly? Delta Airlines just removed their requirement to have a bachelor's degree in order to be able to fly. So if kids can fly and they can learn, get a pilot license, this is what I mean about innovation and education. We don't have to continue to have, one way that kids can do it, right? You can become a pilot and never go to college. And we talk a lot about the other programs they have. My son actually graduated from North Point and got his welding license. So he was certified as a welder when he came out of North Point. So yes, he's a welder, but he also went to college, right? So he wanted to do both. But we have trades, we have, sciences, but we also have kids that maybe they do career first and then go back and do college. Lots of people have done that. But it's hard to do those things if we can't expand the horizon of what kids know to look, feel, and try on a career. I mean, we ask them to come out of college, we ask them to come out of high school and pick a career when we've not exposed them to a bunch of different careers. I mean, exposing kids to being an artist, a graphic artist, right? If we had studios where they could try that on, maybe they can do that. You can be a graphic artist. You don't need a degree. And I'm not saying kids shouldn't get degrees. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying career exposure helps these kids make better decisions about what they want to do. And it's not just always math and science and engineering.
Right. And I want to get into that too as well, as far as mentioned North Point welding, and also possibly bringing it to other schools as far as, just being more robust with the trades. Let me get to some of these comments. Make sure you share the podcast. Absolutely. Share the podcast too as well. For us, and Miss Thomas here too as well, to get the message out. School choice, I'm gonna come back to here in a second. Angela, there's another question that was had earlier, actually by you, that we're getting to. All right, Derek, I'm gonna read your comment here.
Yeah, that's the one I was just looking at.
Yeah, and Zach said you're 100% right. He was referring to a comment earlier as far as federal funding. So just want to clean that up. Anything else up here before I pop in that one? Vocational tech school, yep, I kind of just brought that up a little bit. Community service, is that still a thing as far as high school students?
Yeah, kids are still supposed to do community service. I mean, I have high schoolers, so I know what that's like. I don't necessarily know that it's as robust as I would like it to be. I mean, I think there are lots of opportunities for kids to do community service. I know they do like a little project. And I think that's important to note. There's a difference between doing something because you're trying to check a box and doing it because you want to robustly give the importance of what's supposed to happen, right? One of my kids did community service, and they're like, oh, yeah, we just did this project, and then that was community service. I was like, what? That was all you had to do? And so, but I think there's some other ways. And let kids choose. This is one of the things that I think is really important. And people can agree with me or not. That's okay. I mean, I think opinions are good. But I really think that we should start asking kids more about what they want, right? What do you want, right? If you had the choice to do X, Y, or Z, what would you choose? I think when we give kids options, we do two things. The first thing we do is we teach them that their minds matter and their input is important. And the second thing we do is we teach them how to be executive decision makers of their own lives when they grow up, right? It's not like we just flip the switch. You're 18, you're an adult. How much adulting, pre-adulting, adult coaching did we give them before we just said you're 18, see you later, right? I personally have done it with my kids. I'm like, got some decisions to make, and how do we logic, reason, and how do we get there, right? But you can't you can't tell kids they don't get choices about things, and then when they get to be an adult, they make choices. You got to give them some opportunity to try on decision making, right? And so I think there's some opportunities for us to send out these surveys we send to parents, surveys we send to community, send some surveys to the kids. And I'm pretty sure they're happening, right? I'm pretty sure there's some surveys that are out there for the kids. But where can we find areas to survey kids and see what their input looks like to their education?
I'm all I mean, I was 14, 15 and kind of got to choose. I mean, obviously you got to choose, your schedule, what classes you're taking that year, but
Yeah.
have a more hands-on approach to actually helping. I guess you're talking like build a curriculum in a way. If I can say that.
Yeah.
Then that makes it. I think at least as far as me, that make me more engaged in when I'm learning. So that's
Absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if it's on a small scale, right? Maybe
Right.
a couple teachers want to say at the beginning of the year, listen, this is how I'm going to grade you. I'm going to give you some coursework. I'm going to give you some homework. I'm going to give you a couple tests and some quizzes. I'm going to give you a big project. You want a big project or more tests? As long as the assessments meet the need, right? Can you be a little bit more flexible? Maybe kids want to do a video. I've seen some teachers have done this in their curriculum. They'll say, you have a big project, but here's 4 ways to do it. You can do a video, you can do a PowerPoint, you can do a presentation, or you can write a paper. Which one do you want to do? I mean, as a kid, I would love that, right? Because maybe I don't want to write a long-term paper, right? Maybe I would rather, express myself in video because it's easier for me, or I'm a creative kid and that's what works for me. I mean, that's an example on a small scale of where kids can, kind of, have a little bit of autonomy, especially at the high school level. I think it does exactly what you just said. It builds engagement with kids, and it helps them trust the process a little bit more and have a little bit of navigation of the process, right? I mean, they have so many things coming at them at the high school level. Like, how do we help them?
Absolutely. So let me read Derek's comment. So he says these specific programs aren't policy, but rather should be that of the superintendent that makes over $200K. I agree with assisting the superintendent, but the vision should be that of the superintendent and her job to sell it to the community and board. I have something to say on that, but I'll let you speak on that first.
Yeah. So the superintendent has a role, but again, for me, it's about student centric, right? The superintendent's there for the students. The parents should be there supporting students. The teachers are there supporting the students. And so I do think at the end of the day, everybody should have the same mission, right? If everybody's mission is to educate students in the optimal way necessary for these students to be successful in their life, I think collaboration in many different ways will occur. Right. And I think it has to be that way. But we do need check and balances. We do need people that are going to be transparent. We do need people that are going to offer new ideas. And we do need to, when there's course correction needed, like the GPA, or like I think it was 2 years ago where some schools, what constituted an A, the grading policy wasn't even, right? An F in one school was not an F in another school, right? And so they had to even the grading policy. And so when those things are occurring, everybody needs to pull together and lean in on it.
So you've coached.
I have.
I'll make a point here. I coach. I know Derek. I believe Derek has too as well. And obviously you have assistants too. So you do have a vision as a head coach.
Yep.
But at the same time, your assistants are there for you to lean on and to help you with certain things and understanding.
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't want Dr. Navarro to go out there. This is my way. This is how much I make. Get the hell out.
Right.
So I would like it that, yeah, there's I understand there's a vision there too as well, but I would like that vision to have flexibility with the team you have to work with that has to enact the policy as far as yourself as school board, and to be open to not just you if you win, but also me as a parent.
Right. Well, I am a big proponent that I never want to be in any situation or system that there's a single point of success or failure. Right? If we put it all on Dr. Navarro and everybody's got to just follow her way, then what if she gets it wrong? Or what if her way maybe didn't take into consideration a lot of different perspectives and point of view, right? So I think, the single point of success to me is not one person. It's not shouldered on one person. And that's why we have democracy. That's why we have a board that's comprised of many different people, so that, the constituents in District 1 can come to me if elected, and say, here's how we feel. And I can take that back to the board, and I can talk to, collaborate with, and, influence and negotiate with other districts and say, what do you need? Well, here's what we need. And then we can do that with the commissioners and make sure that collectively as a body. Now, maybe everybody doesn't always get what they want, but we will do the hard work of negotiating, influencing, and really going out to the community and understanding what their needs are. So we bring it back, and we've done the best we can with all the information, and we've taken as many perspectives into consideration as possible.
Work as a team.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Hey. I want to get into something else here. We're going to switch it up. Pascal, read your comment. I think Dr. Navarro is open to ensuring our transformation is community-centered and is willing to work with board members. I need to see more meaningful and intentional ways we are bringing parents and youth to the table.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we should, the school board, the commissioners, everybody involved should be more intentional, right? And I think I told you this earlier. I said I always seek first to understand, then to be understood, right? I wanted to understand a person's perspective. I have been a mother of 4 kids and was traveling. And so I've heard comments, if you don't come to the school board meetings, you don't care. For any parent who hasn't come to a school board meeting, I don't think it's not because you don't care. Maybe you're busy. We have a day and age of people commuting downtown DC. I actually would travel. So 2 weeks out the month, I would leave on a Monday and not come back till a Friday. And I was doing homework with my kids on their iPad, and we were FaceTiming to do homework, right? I was still an engaged mom, but I was out of town. You have parents who are doing, people who are doing elder care, people who have shift work. So maybe you can't get to a school board meeting, but that doesn't mean you don't care. And it doesn't mean that you're not involved. And it doesn't mean that you don't want the best for your students. So, the same as we do for students, we meet you where you are. Parents will meet you where you are. We'll try to gather your comments in a variety of ways so that we can still include and involve your perspective as we make decisions.
Question for you here. Mr. Terry, are you in favor of possibly granting educators compensatory time for working at least 10 hours a week for free?
I think that's giving compensatory time to work for free. I don't know about anybody else out there, but I think everybody's time is valuable, educators included. So compensatory time or working for free, I think we need to find a way that we're going to value teachers. Teachers do a lot of work. I used to get
After
my daughter.
hours.
I have a daughter who habitually turns her stuff in late. I'm like, stop turning your work in late. But the teacher said she would accept it. She's being nice because she has to go home at night after she cooks dinner for her kids, and now she's trying to grade your late papers. I was like, if you get a 0 because you turn in late, tough. You should have turned in on time, right? Because I know what it's like for teachers to have to go home and grade papers after they put their kids to bed, because students turn things in late. Now, does that mean teachers don't want to give grace and do their extra stuff? No, because I believe teachers who really want students to be successful will do that. But do I think that we need to support teachers? Absolutely. We should support those teachers, because the same as, you don't want to go on your job and ask somebody to work for hours for free. Teachers don't want to work for free either.
I mean, I've seen my wife, her first year teaching elementary, she'll come home, we'll do some family stuff, and then she's right back to work. Especially when she first, like a couple months, 10:30 at night.
Right.
Creating posters and coursework for the next day and all sorts of things. So I've seen it. I understand it. I'm right there with you.
And if a teacher loves it, she's going to volunteer a bunch of hours anyway. Or he or she is going to volunteer a bunch of hours anyway. You got to get some teachers that are sewing costumes for one of the plays across the county, right? I don't even know if they're getting compensated for sticking their fingers while they're making costumes, but they love it. They have a vested interest in letting this play at their school be great. And we should celebrate people who come to this profession of teaching and who really want to do it and really want to see kids be successful. They should be celebrated and compensated.
And follow up with Mr. Terry. Compensatory time is one way, but the current for the educator contract doesn't allow anything. I heard PG County Schools does for certain individuals.
So I think it's something we should look at. We have to talk about it. And we can't talk about things in a vacuum. There's budget impacts, and it's also making sure that it's fair and equitable as we look at it across the board. So I think it's something we should talk about. Let's see how we can squeeze something out of the Maryland blueprint. What's in there?
Hey, we'll talk about the blueprint too as well. So as far as a school board, obviously a hot topic in Charles County as far as schools is bullying and violence. So as a school board member, what kind of policy can we enact to combat this?
For me, I think the bullying, the violence, just the heightened sense of emotional risk for students in the school is important to talk about, but I also think it should be part of the curriculum where we are teaching our students to have a level of emotional intelligence that allows them to, at the very young ages, as they grow up, to learn how to have emotional intelligence, learn how to diffuse situations. I talked about this at the NAACP meeting, is if you think about what the resources available to a student on a daily basis, they have a teacher, they have guidance counselors, and then they have, vice principals, walking around the school. The ratio for guidance counselors to students is 1 to 250, 1 to 250, right? That is the National Association of Guidance Counselors. That is like across the board. That's the suggested ratio. That's absurd. It is absurd that we have 1 to 250. I mean, just think about the care and feeding of a kid, right? Today, I had a bad day. My parents are getting divorced, or my best friend. I mean, we've had young people who've had a friend die in school, or, and then they come to school bottled up with all that, whatever is going on, teasing from social media, whatever. They come to school and you say, sit down and do this warm up. What if they need somebody to talk to? What if they're just, it's the meltdown, right? And we see it with little kids and we can manage it better. When they get to be middle school and high school, we're not managing it so well. And we're not managing it so well because we don't have enough resources. We have assistant teachers to help a teacher. And we have, vice principals to help the principal, right? Can we have some guidance counselors in another way? Like, can we find a way to have someone else to help those guidance counselors? Because if you look at the list of things that a guidance counselor is supposed to do, they're helping with IEP, they're helping with behavior issues, they're helping with attendance issues. If a kid doesn't show up for school for a few days, they're supposed to, make sure that they do welfare checks on kids. They got the PPW workers out there that are supposed to be helping. But it's a lot. And as the landscape of schools have changed, and especially after COVID coming back in, I think there's got to be some ways that we can talk through, think about, benchmark best practices across the country where people are having more emotional support in the schools, or even internationally, where are there places that they may do it better, or they may have great ideas that we can bring back. But we've got to invest in trying to find different ways to attack a problem, because I don't think there's a silver bullet. I do not. I think we just have got to look at a variety of ways, and it may even be per school. A bigger school may need something different than a smaller school.
I know something. My bad. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
So obviously, for those that don't know, I'm not from around this area. I'm from Illinois. So in Illinois, and this could be something to look at, for guidance counselors, for us, for each, based off the school size, they're supposed to have one guidance counselor for every 25 kids. And then we also have something called a sprint team. If, God forbid a student were to pass away or something, we have something called a sprint team where they had the guidance counselors
come in and help. Yeah.
Yep.
And I know Charles County has lots of supportive things in place. But again, I think many times we've created policies, or we've been doing something the same way. And I think we need to deconstruct some of these things and reconstruct them again and make it appropriate and optimal for today, right? I mean, the same as we look at, I'll give an example. So like I said, I've had kids go to Charles County Public Schools. You know that senior project that kids do? They do this senior project when they're a senior. They have to write a resume, and then they have to be interviewed, and they have volunteers come in and interview the kids, and it's supposed to like career readiness. So I've done HR for a living for a very long time. I've hired student interns at a bunch of agencies across the government, manage those programs, and so as I've volunteered with helping interview kids at some of the schools, right? And then I thought, the resume, what does it look like? I never knew what it looked like until I looked at the ones that my kids were instructed to do. And of course, I'd ripped it to shreds. I was like, nope, that's not how you do it. We got to do it this way, right? And what I was using was my background and knowledge of today's industry, today's hiring standards, and what kids really would have to do if they came into my office with a resume for a job. But are we teaching the kids that kind of stuff, right? So that's what I mean about deconstructing something that we've always done, and putting a fresh set of eyes on it and reconstructing it so it's more appropriate for what's necessary today. I think that we should, like in that particular senior program, I think we should teach kids how to write a resume. We should have them interview, but I also think we need to teach them how to apply for online jobs. Go out and apply for an online job. Anybody out there listening, go apply for the movie theater. Go apply at, Wawa. Now, back in the day when I was young, you went to a place and you filled an application and you shook the manager's hand and you said, I want a job. Then you hope that you and every other teenager that came in there, you get a job. Today, if you go to any of these places and say, I want a job, they're like, go online. Then the kids go online, they ask all kinds of crazy questions. For example, the behavioral questions that they have online. If you found $50, what would you do with it? Kids are like, why are they asking me if I found $50? If my coworker is mad at me, what would I do? Right? Give them the science behind why they're answering these questions on an online interview. It's a behavioral assessment that's part of your application for this job. Is anybody telling kids that? Right? That's what I mean about deconstructing something and putting it back together to add the things that are appropriate for what these students need to be prepared for in the future.
Okay, so there was a lot there too. So I want to break that down. So let's start with the top. So I'm looking at Derek's comment too, as well, as far as policy in place that's not enforced. I'm not sure if so I've mentioned this before in the podcast too, as well. My son was bullied. Well, he's 9, so he's not elementary school, and the process of trying to get that fixed was complete hell. Had to absolutely prove it, and had to go on Charles County Public Schools to fill out a bunch of forms and wait 48 to 72 hours just for someone to tell you that we can't do anything. So that's one of the reasons, and then obviously there's a lot of kids that leads to when it comes to when the bullying's I'll let you answer that too as well. So you mentioned one of the things you want to do is as far as counselors. Now, 1 to 250, that's not going to be able to really solve any problems. But you mentioned before too as well that, and I just want to see is that as far as your role as a school board member, you reaching out to kids and actually seeing we can actually get down to the problem. I know you said it's not one bullet that can fix all. There's a few things we can do to at least alleviate the problem. Now, I'm asking a lot. There's an American public school problem. So what is something tangible that you think we can do now to actually help at least cut down the violence when it comes to bullying in public schools in Charles County?
Yeah, I think the same as I talked about before when I talked about even with the tutoring, like peer to peer, right? Peer pressure can be good or it can be bad, right? It can be bad, right? So using some good peer pressure when you got kids that are, kind of not being friends, not, doing the right thing, to have kids call that kid out, like, hey, stop, right? My kids went to Berry Elementary, and I remember them having this thing called the lunch bunch. And it was one of the guidance counselors set up this lunch bunch, and it was like if you were a new kid and you came to school, there was a table that you can sit in, and those kids would embrace you because they knew you were new, right? And they would help. And then she had one where if you had problems, you were feeling, like people weren't accepting you, you could go sit in this group. And so I think the guidance counselors really are the ones that can institute those programs, but we gotta make sure that we're at home too as parents, encouraging our kids. If my children are doing something they're not supposed to be doing, I'm going to tell them, right? Kids are always with their phones, videoing fights and all this kind of stuff. And I had a rule. I told my kids, I said, if I do phone checks, I take your phone. I see that you videoed a fight, I'm taking your phone. You don't get to keep it. You either stop a fight, you go tell someone, or you get away from it. You're not going to stand there and videotape it. Right. So I think there's several components of that. Parents need to, check and see what your children are doing. You need to get into, what they're doing. And I know parents are busy and I know kids are sneaky, right? I got sneaky kids. They were sneaky. But I think, there's that peer pressure that you can use, good or bad. I also think that, we have got to find ways that things are, when we have kids that are doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, systemically finding out why, right? I'm going to be Pollyanna for a minute. I have never, ever really met a bad kid who just wanted to be bad, right? Who just wanted to be doing things to destruct and terrorize. Normally, there's something behind it. What is it, right? Have enough dig deeper and to see, right? Maybe that parent has no idea, right? You got that parent who's like, "No, nah, kid's an angel." I'm like, your baby's not an angel, but let's talk about it, right? Or you have that parent that's like, "I had no idea." Or you have, kids who have issues, and the way it's surfacing is, doing something to someone else. And so I think those are things that, again, teaching kids emotional intelligence, having places that they can talk to someone, the free behavioral health services that have been offered. There's lots of grants out there from COVID funding and things where those behavioral things can be added to the school system. We have several groups around the county that people are starting, girls empowerment, girls groups, guys groups. We even have sororities and fraternities in the area that run programs in these schools. I know several fraternities that run programs in the school, strong young men, young women. So I think we have to look at tapping into these resources. Guidance counselors have a referral process where if a kid needs some help, they can refer them to outside services. Referring kids to outside services that is something more than just what I can do in this school building. Is also, opportunities to find ways to support a student, to support a family, and to get them to a place where being in the school system is safe for them and also for other kids.
Okay. Let's get some of these comments too as well. Pascal, if my kids are acting up, please tell me. Yeah, we'll let you know.
I say the same thing.
Hey, same,
And
likewise.
you'll see my kids are tall. You see one of those tall kids, you tell their mama, I'm going to get them.
Kelly, what's going on with you? How you doing today? Tonight, I should say. Question: if a teacher or teacher assistant is placed on unpaid admin leave due to a student accusation, where the teacher, let me move my mouse, where the teacher received that missed pay if the investigation is unfounded. If they don't, is that something that could be out there to think about?
So that's an HR question. Put my HR hat on for a minute. The things that happen for a teacher and administrative, that's all in their teacher's handbook, administrative policy. I don't want to speak on that because I haven't read their HR handbook. So I don't want to speak on that. But typically when an employee is suspended, if the allegations are found unfounded and they mispay, they normally get the back pay. But I can't speak on Charles County Public Schools HR handbook because I've not read it. So I don't want to speak on it. I'm just giving you my HR hat from working as an HR director many times, normally how that works.
Okay, fair enough.
Don't hold me to it. Haven't read Charles County Public Schools HR handbook.
So we were talking, so the back half of what you were saying earlier too as well, you mentioned, we were kind of talking about VOTEC as far as programs as that. So I believe you said one of your kids went to North Point as far as the programs they have there.
I actually had 3 kids go to North Point. That was not my zone.
Oh, yeah. It's very possible.
I heard somebody say, you got to know somebody.
Yeah.
I don't know nobody who got my kids in there, but I know what I did do. I prepped my kids for their interview because I do HR for a living. So we talked about it. I sat down and I prepped them. We had a pre-interview, and I was like, they're going to ask you this, or they're going to ask you that, and this is how you should answer this, or this is what you should know. So I had another child who was in the STI, the program for cyber, and she's a girl. She didn't want to do it. She's like, I was like, no. Let's look at the bigger grand scheme. Department of Labor, cybersecurity is the way to go. There's no women in this field. This is why you want to learn this. So I prepped her for that interview. When she went to her interview, she said, Mom, they asked me all the questions you said they would. I said, I know they did.
Ironic.
But this is how you prep. So this is what I mean. Don't interview a kid if you didn't prep them for the interview. So I prep my kids, right? Like I would, because I've interviewed thousands of people for a living doing HR. So I prep my kids for the interview.
What do you think of the programs there at North Point?
I think the structure of the programs is good. I think some of the things that are being taught is necessary. Very aligned with emerging careers that are coming out.
Such as?
So like cybersecurity, I think that's one. I think, and I know some other kids that have been in the program. So I know someone that just graduated in the nursing program. I know some people that have been in the educators program. Of course, my son was in the welding program. So at the cosmetology program, the chef, the cooking program. So I do think the programs are good, but I do think a couple of things. One, We want every program that we have to continuously evolve so that it's always aligned with what's changing. That's hard. Right? It's hard. It's even hard to keep the curriculum up to date, right? Does anybody ever remember being in school and like it would say that the latest president is whoever, and you're like, that's not the president. It's two more presidents, right? The textbooks are old or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so it is hard, but I think having a way to recycle the content, then add or align new things to it, the programs can really use that. The other thing I think is challenging, any of the vocational programs, any of the programs that you're trying to get kids certified, like the Cisco certifications and stuff, the people who are really good at teaching these things are in industry, right? They are working for a company making $150,000, $200,000 a year. And you say, hey, I want you to come over to Charles County Public Schools and teach this. I mean, what's the lure? What's the lure to get them to come for the salaries we offer? So perhaps we could maybe look at, an adjunct process, right? You have the way they do in college. You have adjunct professors that teach at Howard, and then they come teach at Southern Maryland, right? Maybe it could be budget friendly to get someone to come over and teach a class on Tuesdays from 2 to 3, but they come from industry. They have industry experience, because it's hard for them to get teachers. So maybe we look at some innovative ways to get people to come in with industry knowledge or industry experience to come into the classrooms and teach, because they're actually doing the work. I mean, I would do that, come into the classroom and you pay me, I don't know, an hourly rate of whatever it is to come teach for a couple hours in the school. It gives the kids industry experience. It gives us some resources, and we don't have to worry about paying HR benefits and everything, because this is not, a full-time teacher. And maybe that person who's coming in from industry partners with the teacher who's full-time in the school, and they help them get the curriculum to a place that's really aligning it to what they need. Because like even IT, it moves so fast, right? It's hard to keep that curriculum up. So I think that's again, innovation in education. How do we get the kids what they need, but maybe we just look at it differently, right? That whole, get some industry people willing to come down here, hourly rate, contract, come in, teach some things, partner with the teacher. It helps the kids, and it can be more budget friendly.
When I asked about that, the funding with that in a second, Derek thinks, just looking at his comment right here, that the union will have a huge problem with that. It's almost impossible for it to happen.
Everything is up for discussion. I think everything is up for discussion, right? Maybe it won't work, but you'll never ask you'll never know if you never ask, right? So, I mean, if the school has no ability to find the expertise necessary to teach for certain subjects, why would the union be upset if you find a resource, right? No one is filling the job. So we leave it unfilled and leave our students with nothing, or we find ways to give them something.
Reminds me of when Manny was on here. Everything is negotiable. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm always going to ask the hard questions. I'm always going to ask the probing questions. And maybe my answer is out of left field. But maybe it gets people thinking, it percolates the thoughts to get people to a different place than they would have arrived if we just continued to just, stay on the path and never deviated at all.
Pascal, don't say his name. Yeah, and that's a big thing too as well. You ask, you see what happens. Maybe say yes, maybe say no.
Right.
But I would rather for the conversation to happen than just like you said, just lead the positions on the field. So back to North Point, would you be, if able, bringing these programs to more schools than just that particular?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because,
how could we go about that?
Well, I think a lot of people want to be in North Point because it's the new school. It's the one. I mean, it's the new school. Everybody wants to go there. They have more resources. It's bright and shiny. It has, it's not old, and it doesn't have, building structural issues or whatever, right? So, I mean, I want to go somewhere new too, right? I mean, it doesn't mean that the old is bad, but, we're talking about young people, right? And we're also talking about people who are new to the county. There are lots of people new to the county, and they don't even know where Lackey is unless you go back there and accidentally bump into it, or you live in that area. Some people who move in the water may not even know, where McDonough is on the back roads, like whatever. And so North Point may be a draw for a lot of people because they do have the programs. It was heavily promoted when it was first opened. So a lot of people may have even made the move down to Charles County because they wanted North Point as the school. I mean, there was a point in time where they were kicking kids out of North Point because they had, kids that were just changing addresses and things just to go to North Point. So but every child in the county should have opportunities to go to programs. I mean, Steedham has some great programs. That HVAC, I think the HVAC program is at Steedham, right? I mean, there are other programs, but you have to publicize them. I think the kids need to know about them and all of the programs. McDonough has some great, I think McDonough has a health, I think a medical program of some sort over there. So there are good programs in all of the schools, and continuing to expand those programs for the students can always be helpful. So then students don't feel like they have to rush into one school, because there's a variety of opportunities all around the county and not just for specific schools.
I'm looking at Zach's comment. I was going there next with the blueprint too as well. Now, my question is that why should every school offer something different? I mean, is that not disadvantage to a student that, like, I have to go here to get this? Shouldn't it be every school just offers the same thing?
Well, I mean,
kind of like how every school offers a football team.
Right. Well, I think it's a little bit of it's a juggling act, right? Because if you want to have the same quality level of program at every school, then you've got to have the same type of curriculum, educators to support that curriculum and to administer the curriculum, right? So
right.
If you have trouble hiring a teacher to do something at one school, then you're going to have trouble trying to get that same. And when it's a very specific program, like some of the specific programs we're talking about, if it's hard to just keep the kitchen that they have at North Point to do the culinary program and all that, if it's hard to do that and then recreate that in the schools, it takes funding, right? And so perhaps there's a way that they could have students, like maybe your homeschool, you do this, but then maybe you go to another school to do something else or something like that. But again, I think it's asking the questions to talk about, to see what are the options, right? I know my kids went to an elementary school that I think it's fifth grade. You do swimming safety, right? So they bus the kids over to the school one day, whatever your swimming day is. You go over to the school, you do swim safety. You got to take an outfit that you can get wet. They throw you in the pool, teach you swimming safety, right? It's not only for the schools that are close to a school with a swimming pool. Most of the kids are doing that. They used to do it. I don't know if they do it anymore. My kids are a little older, but I don't think they do that anymore.
But I was going through enough right now.
but sometimes, you have to, you just have to be innovative about how you approach it. And maybe the answer is no. But if I'm elected to the school board, I'm going to go find the answer, and you're going to have to prove it's really no, before we say, I'll close the door and don't try it again. And maybe it's no now, because we got to do a little bit more maturing as a school district. Maybe the maturity curve, we're just not there yet to do everything we want to do. But maybe it's no now, but setting the groundwork as part of the board means that maybe it can be possible in 2 years. So, maybe for some kids in high school now, we can't mature a program, get the right funding, get the right resources and support in place. But maybe for the middle school kids coming up, we can have it, in place. We can't move things very rapidly sometimes, but that doesn't mean you take it off the table and you don't consider it at all.
Talk to me more about the blueprint. What's your thoughts on it?
I think the blueprint is awesome. I think it is a great opportunity for Maryland to kind of inject themselves with good education, right? And not that education across Maryland is bad, but I think everything can always be a little better. Everything has a room for improvement. I have a room for improvement, as a person, we all have room for improvement. So the blueprint is looking at something that we've never really delved into before, which is really emphasizing pre-K, really emphasizing the, we see that we've got to grow these kids up to be educated and launch into life, but we now really, the blueprint is saying, focus on 3 and 4-year-olds, focus on the little kids, right? I think that's really important, and I think that means, what does that mean about us having those resources in the community to do that, right? Because some kids have been to preschool and pre-K, and some kids never went. They start kindergarten. That's the first time they've ever been in school. Are they prepared to be learners? Sometimes not. And
My
so
son wasn't, so
yeah.
you could have definitely used something of the sort.
Yeah, and I think that
My middle son. There it is. Sorry, Rick.
Yeah, that's happening to my
Yeah.
youngest son, Nate, right now.
I got 3 now. Gigi's still new. No, but please keep
no,
going.
no, no. And I think that's really important. I think the fact that they're raising the teacher salaries, they're going to make it consistent. I think that's been a struggle for Charles County. Adjacent to us, if the counties are offering more, Virginia's offering more, it's harder to recruit for teachers. I also really feel like the standards for the curriculum are going to be really good for us. I think those standards will help. But I also think that the blueprint is also saying we as a state value education, and we're going to put our money where our mouth is. And I think that is a great opportunity for Charles County with the influx of people as our population have grown, as our needs have grown, that we can really leverage this. But we've got to be careful. The blueprint can be a gift and a curse. It's going to give us some standards, some things we have to do. It's going to give us some funding initially, but we have to do the hard work of operationalizing that blueprint, setting up a structure, making sure that we have the right funding, and then working with the commissioners to sustain that funding over the long haul. Because if we fund programs and they're working and they're successful, and then we can't continue to fund them, that's going to be a problem. And so I think that we have to have the short goals of what the blueprint stipulates initially, and then we have to have the long-term goal as a community to make sure that we have funding and some support to continue that for continuity throughout the year.
What kind of standards do we have to do as far as it goes?
So there are lots of standards around the education, the curriculum, what we need to do for assessments. I think that's going to be really important, the assessments for the students. And when we talk about the assessments, I think that, we had No Child Left Behind. That was a whole big thing. Then the Kerwin report talked about what we needed to do. And I think this one is setting some more assessments with testing. It's aligning us to Department of Education's rules around assessments for the students. And I think those assessments to make sure, because, you have some round assessments like graduation rate, right? So the counties will be like, we're graduating our kids, but what are the reading levels of the students? And then what are the reading levels broken down into the demographics of the students? And so I think those things are also important, and those are really aligning to what we need to do.
Yeah, I'm looking at the top 5 that they have here.
Do I get to read?
Yeah, for sure.
You can, yeah. That's why I didn't.
Can't do both.
I wasn't laughing at you. I saw one of the comments.
One of the top blueprint for Maryland's future. One of the 5 key policy areas. One of the first ones is early childhood education.
Right. That's
So,
the first one, and I think it's important.
I'm looking at Margaret's comment too.
Yeah,
as well.
that's what I was laughing at.
Yeah. When they can make our 6 to 18-year-olds proficient in basic academic skills, and let's talk about 3-year-olds. Well, I know one thing the blueprint's trying to do
It's
is
the blueprint.
is give them an earlier start. So,
Yes.
Margaret, I want to make sure I'm not reading it wrong. So please give me a little bit right there too, as well, as far as that, because I'm not sure starting earlier is such a bad thing.
Yeah, Margaret, I mean, it's not me. I didn't make it up. I would encourage you to go read the blueprint. The blueprint is really, they're really putting an emphasis on early childhood education, because there's lots of studies that have been done from the National Association of Education of Young Children, the National Teachers Association, that have said that if students get an earlier start with having more academic exposure, it helps in 3 ways. The first way that it helps is that when kids come to school, they're ready to learn, and then teachers have to do less supporting children who are at varying levels. So if you think about a group of 5-year-olds that all come into kindergarten, and kindergarten, each one of those students, one is doesn't know their ABCs, has no phonemic awareness, doesn't know how to write their name. You have one kid who's just like crying all day because it's the first time they've been away from mom, and they're not ready to learn at all. And then you have one kid who's reading. Well, the role of a teacher in the classroom is try to deliver or administer education to all of those kids. And so the National Association for Education of Young Children, which has been endorsed greatly by Department of Education and other education think tanks around the country, have said if we start to focus on 3-year-olds and kids early, then we might have the ability to kind of have some equilibrium in the classroom, so teachers can kind of get everybody to the same place. And so that's why the blueprint says that. It's not me. I'm just talking about what's in the blueprint and the kind of why behind it.
Yeah, I'm looking at Pascal's comment too as well. Early daycare is like paying the mortgage 100%.
It is.
If I tell you the prices that me and Jenny pay for daycare. It'll make you sick. So yeah, like I said,
had a
I
mom
wish.
who did it for me.
Yeah. I wish we would have had something like that. Now, obviously, it's a price with that, but it's already there. So we can't deny it. It's
And that's
happening.
when kids' brains are they have the most absorption when they're little. I mean, you can teach them anything. They repeat things. So, I mean, it's a fun time. As I said, I used to be assistant director of 2 daycare centers, and I think teaching a kid how to read is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even greater to teach a kid how to read who has dyslexia. I had to do that with my son. He had dyslexia, and boy, I mean, when he finally got it, it was joy. It was pure joy as a mom. And I know it's joy for every parent, but when your child has a learning disability and they can learn to do something that they struggled mightily, it was amazing. And today, my son, you never know he had dyslexia unless he told you. And it was
Amazing.
because I started when he was 5. I knew, because I had a background in social work and education. I knew he had dyslexia. I had to wait to get the testing. The testing's not considered valid until you're 6. That was his 6th birthday present, his psychological educational evaluation testing. It cost me a lot of money. But because I knew he had that, I was able to start really young getting him. And unfortunately, a lot of kids aren't diagnosed with some of these learning disabilities until 3rd and 4th grade. By that time, the neuron paths in the brain that teach reading, they're already starting to form. And so then you're doing the rework of trying to unform them to help kids, when if you knew earlier, you could help them earlier, which is another really valuable reason why, if we start educating kids and have exposure, then kids who have struggles or will have struggles, you can catch it earlier, you can help them earlier, you can set them on a path earlier.
Yeah, I mean, that's early detection is everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they say for everything else, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm all for teaching kids early, and then, we'll give you we'll have better, in my opinion, we're better 6 to the 18-year-olds as far as, when it comes to basic skills. So it's here.
Going off of that
Go ahead.
comment, I was trying to understand it. That's why I was laughing at it, right? And Margaret hasn't responded yet, but I don't think that we're saying to just forget what the 6 to 18-year-olds are doing now. Of course, the blueprint is still going to work with the 6 to 18-year-olds. But I think it's talking about, going younger because you can build from younger, like you were saying.
Yeah.
So, Margaret, I don't think we're talking about, just forget the 6 to the 18-year-olds now.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how I read it. I don't
Yeah.
know how y'all read it. Maybe I understood
Yeah.
it differently.
I'm passionate about kids. To me, you're a kid to you. Some people are going to think I'm crazy. I don't care. But you're a kid to me until you're 25. And the reason why that is because the part of your brain that governs executive function is not fully formed until you're 25. Read it, go look it up. But I think, when you turn 18, that's no magic number. And so I'm passionate about those high schoolers getting what they need to go out to the workforce and be confident and be good, productive citizens and get a job, gainfully employed. So all those parents out there who do not want to keep paying your kids' car insurance, cell phone bills, college, and all that, let's get into helping these kids when they're in high school. Give them the best start they can get. But I'm also passionate about teaching little kids too, right? I just saw Maggie had a comment. She said,
What's going on, Maggie? How you doing?
Yeah, she said the assessment tests are a huge part of the problem. Without the assessment test, kids would have the opportunity to master the skills. And I think that's a pivotal statement, right? Sometimes we've heard a lot, teaching to the test, and then the kids aren't mastering the skills. I'm not gonna say either way whether I think the tests are good or bad, but what I will say is kids need time to be able to master something. And if you test often, but you're not teaching comprehensively enough for them to be successful in the test, maybe the kids aren't even paying attention to the test. I know I had to have that conversation with my kids, right? Yeah, you have a assessment test this week. They're like, yeah, we don't have to do anything. I'm like, you have to do anything but take that test. And they're like, oh, that test's not important. It's not important for me, right? Even just helping kids understand where their power lies, right? And this test is really important. You have to take this test. What's the test for? What am I doing? Am I prepared? I think if you before you start one of those assessment tests, let's just do a swag and say, hey kids, how many of you think you're going to do great on this test? See what they say. Maybe they think they're prepared. Maybe they don't. I don't know.
Perfect.
Laura, how you doing tonight? I just wish our early childhood education was more play and SEL focused and less academic.
Yeah. I think I tend to agree with that. Learning through play is one of the National Association of Education of Young Children's principles. It has been for a very long time. I was a member of the National Association of Education of Young Children for a very long time because I think teaching kids is amazing. I think the people that do it, the fortitude that it takes to do it is, and I have 4 children who each have a different learning style. And when you have to have 4 children who all have a different learning style, I can imagine with just 4 in my house, and I know these kids, like I birthed them, right? Then have teachers who have 15 kids with different learning styles. Like it takes a lot, right? And so I do agree, learning through play, experiential learning, making sure that we have a curriculum that has kinesthetic curriculum portions as well. I mean, there's some kids that need to stand up and walk around, some kids who are audio or visual and kinesthetic. How do we create curriculums to do that? I mean, teachers are trained to do that, but it's still, that's why innovation in education is really important, because there are some great apps that teachers use, like Kahoots, that they can use for kids. There's, a lot of new and emerging things within the textbooks, like, online textbooks. We used to look at a textbook and you just see a picture of whatever. Now the kids use online textbooks. They can see a video. They can, have interactive things. While some of us think too much time on the iPad, too much video game, too much of this, while it's not always healthy and there should be limits, this is the way they've always had an iPad. They've always had cell phones. So taking these resources that they know how to use really well, that their students are comfortable with, and using it as a tool for learning, it's an opportunity. And they have to do it when they get into the workforce, right? Pilots do simulated air flight on a video game. The Air Force spent tons of money building a flight simulation, and that's how pilots learn to fly. I know that probably everybody out there is taking an online class at their job for almost anything, EEO, diversity, whatever. So they're going to encounter these things when they get to the work world, right? So why not teach them how to embrace the technology in the optimal way for their learning today, so that when they get out into the work world, they know how to do it and do it well.
Pascal, I see you copy and paste your question. I was coming back to it.
I saw that too.
Yeah, we see. We're just getting back to it eventually. Some point in this podcast. But Maggie, reading. These kids just need to be reading from the time they're infants. We can raise readers, lovers of reading. We can just get these kids reading. The rest will fall into place. Play and read. They don't have to sit at a desk and do worksheets, but they do need to read and to read themselves all day long. Less screens, more books.
Every kid doesn't love reading. And I do agree reading is important. I love reading. I'm a reader. I love reading. I used to get in trouble in school because I was reading, and I went to Catholic school. The nuns would take my books, so I couldn't read because I was in the back of the reading. I did my work first, but then I was reading. I was bored. But every kid is not a reader. I had a kid who was not a reader because he had dyslexia. He didn't love reading, but he was growing up the time during Harry Potter, and I bought all the Harry Potter books on audio, and he listened to every one of them, but followed along with the book. The pronunciation of the words was difficult. He had dyslexia, so so I think helping kids digest the words around them in reading, but how does it work for that kid, right? Every child is different, and if it's different for them, how do we meet them where they are? I think that's important. For my platform, one of the things that'll be really important is that we have things for mainstream kids. We have things for every child. Like, it's gonna work for 70% of the kids. But I also want to not leave out the 30% of the kids something doesn't work for, right? The same as with parents. Something's going to work for 70% of the parents. But the 30% of the parents that it doesn't work for, I don't want to leave them out. I want to make sure that we, think about them too. When we talk about our kids who are in different populations, learning disabled children, kids who have, something on, one of the 504s and all this, I don't want to leave those kids out. I want to make sure that when we develop a policy or a program, that we always think about how does it affect the entire population, even the kids that are the outliers. Even like the dress code was one for me. Like, the dress code was an outlier. My daughters and I, we went round and round about the dress code. They had this rule, the fingertip rule. Your shorts had to be tall, longer than your fingertip. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm 6'3". My daughters are tall. The fingertip rule meant my daughters literally had to have culottes on. And so I refuse to let my daughters wear shorts to school at all because there was no way they could meet the fingertip rule. They just didn't sell them in their size and their length because we're tall and we just can't go into Target, pick a pair of shorts, because if we did, they were really short. Then I go to school and I see all the little girls have short shorts on. I'm like, oh, I'll send my kids to school. Then it was like, oh, it doesn't pass their fingertips. Wait a minute. Wait. How's this rule working? It wasn't applied evenly. Some kids, it didn't pass the fingertips. And that's what I mean. Innovatively thinking about, like, how do we come up with policies that are practical, that make sense, that can be enforced, that value the students? Because my daughters were wearing jeans and it was 90 degrees outside because of a fingertip rule. Did it make sense? Maybe the rule should have said something else, like cannot show your butt. I don't know, but I'm just saying those are the types of things that when we look at these things as a school board with the school system, think about parents, think about students, and have practical approaches to how we design things.
Okay. And approach the same way as far as reading and studies too as well.
Absolutely. Because we don't want to leave any kid. I know that whole No Child Left Behind. I think No Child Left Behind, but I would say I don't want to leave a student out. If Charles County Public Schools, every student should have their needs met. Every student.
I would agree. I mean, it'd be a super, drop my phone. You had to be a super villain not to agree with that one. So I'm all for it. Let's see. Pascal. The Boost program this summer had a bumpy start. Back to school always seems like a shit show. How can we make sure our district is running more smoothly? And how would you work with district leadership to ensure we are less chaotic?
Pascal, that's Pascal's question?
Yeah.
It is.
So, this is so hard because I think we're still reeling from COVID. We're still trying to find a new normal. I think the schools are trying to find a new normal. Dr. Navarro coming in, she's trying to storm and norm, get everything straight. I have to say that I've seen some promise. Like I said, I've been in the county since 2001. And I was like, why is our handbook a calendar? And why do I get 10 of them? Because I have 4 kids, but now things are more online. I've seen they tried to streamline the websites. They're doing really good at that because before you go to one school, website was different. And so I think trying to find ways to improve communication, improve transparency for parents, leverage social media better, leverage things that are online. And also I see, more push of information out to parents. I think that's gonna go a long way as we come back from COVID. Like, this wasn't a full true un-COVID year, right? We still had lots of up and downs, virtual school, kids in and kids out. And so I think, working with the new administration, some changes that are happening, and continue to have a voice. Parents, have a voice. If there's something that's not working right, you need to tell. If I'm elected to the school board, tell me, right? But I think everybody else that's either on the school board now or those that are coming in, they have an intent to be able to be receptive to what's going on in the community and take it back and be a change agent.
Real quick, do you, Angela asked, do you agree with you having uniforms in school?
So selfishly as a parent, uniforms are awesome because if we had uniforms, we wouldn't have these dress code issues. However, again, I really believe that these are things that we need to take to the community and see what they want. There was a school in Charles County, an elementary school, a couple years ago that they had uniforms. And when they had those uniforms, some of the kids were doing it, some of the kids weren't. But we can look at our neighboring counties. And
it was optional?
Yeah, it was optional. But
what school was this?
I think it was, I don't want to say because I don't remember. But there was one elementary school in the county. I'll think about it and I'll tell you. Remember, I'll send you the email.
Okay.
And then there were our neighboring schools. DC Public Schools has uniforms. PG County has uniforms. Mm-hmm. Maybe we can go borrow some lessons learned. Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? I mean, when my kids had uniforms, and when I wore uniform as a kid, I didn't go to public school. I went to private school my whole life, and I wore a uniform, and I loved it. Loved my uniform. I knew exactly what I was wearing in the morning. I didn't have to worry about being teased. I didn't worry about my uniform being different than someone else's. But there are some parents who want kids to have individuality, and they may not want uniforms. So again, I think it's something that we ask the question, we talk to the community, we see the feasibility, and then we move forward.
Looking at Zach's comment here, he went to school in Florida, said it was optional, but everybody just wore it. But uniform, yeah. I mean, if it's optional, I don't see it's there if you want to wear it, but Me having two, soon to be three kids, I don't really care one way or another, to be honest.
Uniforms are
How
actually
they would
cheaper.
feel, they wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
Nah, they wouldn't like it at all.
Yeah.
You don't know that.
Nah, I know that.
You can always make
All the
something
jerseys they get to
You're the
wear,
dad.
whatnot.
You
No,
wouldn't know
You can
that.
always
change
make
with a
Dad.
polo.
something. You can always make something new normal, and then kids have a little individuality. You can wear different shoes or whatever.
Better
you
put
know?
that Live Strong bracelet on to make it make it a little
What,
different.
in a pair of Jordans,
Yeah.
a pair of LeBrons,
one
some
pair of
Kyries.
shoes versus the whole wardrobe. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm looking at your platform here too. So you mentioned several times throughout the podcast, an IEP advocate. First of all, for the populace, IEP, what does that stand for?
Individual education plan, and that is for students who learn differently or have some learning needs. And so they will have an individual education plan. That is something that they have typically have assessments done, and after they have the assessments done, then they have a plan in place which gives them several different goals, and they do those on a quarterly basis with the school or twice during the year. For elementary school kids, it's something that it's binding with the teacher that they have to make sure they do, and it's a good thing because students can use those to help even learning for them, right? If they need a little more time, so they can have goals all the way from just having more time or untimed assessments to very strict goals like, I will be able to do so many problems within 5 minutes. And then the teachers can work really, really strategically towards helping those children achieve those goals. So I've done that for my own students, my own children who are on IEP, but I've also helped other parents. Children with learning disabilities, sometimes we have parents who, they were a good student and they didn't have a learning disability, and they get into their child is not learning and they don't know why, and now they're bewildered about, what can the school do? What can I do? What should this school be doing? And so the IEP is really a contract between the parents and the school to say, this is what your child needs, assess them, and this is what can help them. And then they can monitor that and modulate it along the way. When the kids get to high school, it's even better because they can take that IEP with them to college, so they can have support services. They can even have those support services used for assessments like the SAT. So you can have an untimed SAT, and the guidance counselor will coordinate to get that in place as well. So the IEP is really helpful. And then they also have 504 plans when it's just not academic based, but other things that the student will.
And 504 plans are what exactly?
Those are plans to put other educational support services that are in place, and for students that it's not just academic. Sometimes it's other things based on their needs, educational support needs within the school system.
Got it. So actually, let's clean up a few comments here. Pascal, I'm cool with uniforms, former Costa Rican. I think it's fine. May lessen bully incidents too as well. Wouldn't argue that. And let's see, Maggie, uniforms would eliminate the dress code issue. 100%.
Could be.
Yeah. And then make it more of a focus on education, and this is one less thing to worry about. All good points. Let's see. Wouldn't it be lovely if Maggie, again, if every child had their own individual education plan? I wonder how much more assessment success would we have if every student had their own needs met.
I planted that question, Maggie. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you. That's one of the things. I wish we could. It would be so expensive for every kid to have their own individual education plan. But I mean, if anybody has ever had a student who has an educational IEP, that behavioral assessment, like I said, was super expensive, but the county does them for students who actually have a demonstrated need, right? You go to school and you say my child's in need, and they will do the assessment, school psychologist, whatever. But just because of my background, I knew my son needed it. I went to an independent place and got it done. But it's an awesome document that you get at the end. It tells you how your kid thinks, how they learn, what's most successful. And they also do these assessments that are not just about academics, but about how their brain works, right? And if every teacher had that, to understand the inside, because it takes a teacher, 2 months to figure that kid out, right?
Yeah.
So you got September, goofing around. October, trying to figure it out. Now we're like, okay. That's when the teachers start changing seats, right? They're like, okay, you can't sit with him because you get distracted. You move over there. So the teachers are still having to develop that relationship. And while they do have assessments from the year before to help give them some insight, those are just numbers, right? The IEP will bring a child to life through assessments that are cognitive, that are tested, tried, and true, standardized, and that really does, So I'm not saying parents run out and get one, but I mean, if you've ever had the opportunity to look at an IEP and the assessments that go into them, it is a lot of work, but it is invaluable. I mean, it's just invaluable.
IEPs. What's your thoughts on homeschooling?
Homeschooling. I think it's a parent's choice. If a parent decides to homeschool their child for whatever reason, I think it's a choice. I am glad to see that it used to be that if you were homeschooled in the county, some things you couldn't participate in. But now I see that they're opening it up and allowing people to participate. But I think we should have options. I think the county should have options. I know that we have a charter school that's supposed to be coming on board. That's an option. I think it is really important to not forget that while these are children, when I was growing up, my mom had this T-shirt and it said, "Kids are people too." That's how my parents treated me. And that's how I treat my kids. They are people, right? They're little people. They need some guidance. They need, but they are people. And as we cannot ask them to go out into the world never having been treated like a human being with a voice. And if we don't give them some voice now. And so I feel like homeschooling, if you have a child who's like, I want to be homeschooled, and you as a family make that decision, I think, there could be some support services and there needs to be some measures and things in place. But if it's your choice, I don't think we should take that away from you unless it's a safety issue for the student.
2020, we homeschooled our two boys. It was really, really nice, and it was really good for them too as well. Yeah, I think they, not saying anything bad about public schools, but they definitely learned a lot too as well, just in that environment, especially 2020. It was crazy as far as all these apps and learning and all these,
We got to make good decisions about the resources used for one.
Yeah, it was a little rough back then. I know things have gotten better, but it was crazy. So yes, absolutely. I'm a huge advocate of it.
Use free software.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Do not use the free software. Just buy the full version, right?
School choice.
School choice.
Thoughts on that?
School again. I mean, though these are, a child is a parent's child for life. So whatever you choose to do with your child that you believe is going to set your children up for success, I don't think we should stand in the way for that. If you choose public school, homeschooling, private school, whatever your choices are, if it's best for your child, I think you should be able to make those choices.
100% agree. Maggie, homeschooling is one big IEP.
It is.
I absolutely agree.
And there are things, I reteach content all the time. My kids are in school and they bring something home, and I may look at it and I think the teacher was intending to teach something that I don't think my kid understands. I'm going to redo it. I taught my kids all cursive. Charles County Public School had cursive in, then they took it out, then they put it back in. And so I had some kids that never learned cursive. I taught cursive at home because I knew they needed it. And when I went to the school when my kids were young and I said, why aren't you all teaching cursive? They said, well, because the kids are going to have to type. They aren't going to need cursive, but they need to read cursive. You got to learn how to write it to read it. Because I would see people who come into a workforce and there are things that they took out of their curriculum or they didn't learn, and now they can't use that in order to be successful adults. Because remember, they're being hired by me. I learned how to write cursive in school, so I write in cursive. My son went to get his driver's license at the MVA, and when he went to get it, you got to sign your name, and so he went to sign his name. And the lady at the MVA said, "Oh, you must not go to Charles County Public Schools." I said, "Why'd you say that?" She said, "Because he signed his name. A lot of kids come in here and print. They don't even know how to write cursive. Your signature is not your signature if you don't know how to do cursive." So that's an example of where we just have to make smart decisions about what we put in and out the curriculum.
There it is.
I know it's good now, but
that's the first block on the HR for a job interview for her. Can you
Sign
read
your
this
name.
cursive? Sign your name.
And then you start printing like,
Oh,
you
the
know
IRS
what?
on the
Yeah,
IRS
you know what?
is
Hey, I
that
don't
too,
think this is
right?
gonna work out.
Sign your name. These are your taxes. Sign your name.
I've had adult co-workers that cannot read cursive. Yeah, it's a learning mechanism and tool.
It's sad when you can't read cursive. But you can't
Yeah.
write. Unless you have a learning disability, which there is one for. But other than that, I literally gave a young analyst, an intern. I literally were in a meeting. I was taking notes. She's taking notes, typing, and I had my own hand notes. I handed it to her, and she came to me 17 times to ask me, "What is this word?" Because it was cursive and she couldn't read.
Oh man.
I think she was 20. Couldn't read cursive.
I feel like I learned cursive the same year I learned how to print. Honestly,
I
yeah.
think I learned it in
First
I
grade.
think I learned it. I think we were in third grade when you had to we actually had a penmanship grade.
Yeah.
You know, me and Rach, we grew up in the same private school, so I didn't learn print until, honestly, I didn't do anything in print until I think I was in high school. Everything was cursive, and we had a penmanship class too as well. All we
Yeah,
did
we
was
did.
cursive.
Yeah, we did too.
When
Yeah.
I was growing up, you
Elementary,
got your
middle, that's
paper-
all we did was cursive.
Yeah,
everything.
you got your paper handed back if the print was not good, if the spelling was not good, if the grammar was not good, if the content was not good. My kids have turned in things in school, like classwork, and it comes home, and I'm like, what is this? They're like, oh, I got a grade. I'm like, you have a B, and you have like 6 run-on sentences. You're going to redo this. You got to redo this.
Yeah.
So wait, they don't look at that stuff anymore?
Sometimes they're like, we're not taking off for spelling. And you know, and I'm not
I should have went to school
I'm not
this
saying-
time. I might have been an honor roll student.
I'm not
Dang.
saying which students and
Hurricane
which teachers.
season. Inside joke. He gets it.
But I'm just saying these are the details that parents at home, you know, can do to support their kids. Because I do it at home with my kids. Like we redoing homework. If it's not right, you got to do it again. It helps the teachers because then that means my kid is prepared to learn and they really did their homework. And then the other way around, teachers want to know that parents are engaged, and homework is a good way to be engaged as a parent.
Looking at Zach's comment too. I'm all for that. I definitely like saying engaged as far as what my kids are doing in school. I mean, that's day one. Zach, my signature is a squiggle. That's years of working in it's for the government. Yeah. That's a little bit different.
Mine's
That's a little
is
bit different.
illegible now too.
Dr.
Zach.
Cook will forgive you too as well. So that's okay. Bar is low, isn't it? Yeah. So
That's crazy.
Dr. Navarro's strategic plan, is that as far as bringing cursive back, or in the public schools? Just want to make sure we're on the same page with that. Until that question is asked, unless you have the answer for that.
No, I think Dr. Navarro has a solid plan. You know, and I read her plan. I actually was so involved in when they were selecting the superintendent. Like I was commenting on the surveys. I was sending questions that they should ask because, you know, I was very much in my HR world when they were interviewing, right? And I watched all the interviews of all the candidates, you know. And Dr. Navarro has gotten into her role, and I think she very much understands that she's not educating herself and what she went through when she was being educated, but she's educating students that have to go out into the real world, right? And I do see that there are parts of her plan that are very much trying to bring into, you know, new things, you know, put things in place that need to be there that may have been taken out, or, you know, just maybe, you know, things that aren't being executed as robustly as necessary. And so I do see those things in her plan, which I'm excited about.
Okay, man, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
I'm
my youngest
highly
is
interested.
16, right? My youngest will be 16 next month. So I have a rising June.
Yeah, my youngest is should be 2 next month, so we'll get to see it all. Definitely get to see all.
Unfold.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be here
that'd
for
be-
you. I'm gonna be here.
Yay,
for you.
there it is.
Yeah.
Love to
And
see
I
it.
have nieces and nephews who are young, and they got to go through. I have, you know, some nieces and nephews that are just first grade, about to go into kindergarten. So, and they're in the county, so I have a vested interest.
Hey, there. Well,
Yeah.
Here you are.
In
Yep.
addition to that, I live in this county, right? If anywhere across the country where you see education is not solid, you also see an erosion of the economy. You see an erosion of the buildings and things within the community. So when you support education, you are supporting the infrastructure of your community. When you don't support education, you are supporting the erosion of your community. And I think that's important. When kids aren't handled, when they don't have places to go, when things to do, they find other things that they shouldn't be doing, right? So this is why it matters. And it doesn't matter to me just as a parent. It matters to me because I'm part of this community.
Love to see it. Love to see it build. How's the campaign going?
It's going good. I mean, I think it's a little touch and go for me. I have a lot of ground to cover. I've done some things on social media. I've gone to a lot of the interview events. It's also hard because the beginning of it, I was still in mom mode. My daughters play club volleyball. So every weekend I was in a different city for 3 days on club volleyball. So it was a little hard to kind of run back and do stuff. So it's going well. Along the way, I've met some good people who are supportive, and I have been endorsed by the teachers, by NEACC. So I'm on the Apple ballot. I went through the process. I think it was really good. And I was glad. I was grateful that I was on the Apple ballot. So that's good. So yeah. And I think I heard somebody say, "Oh, if you're on the Apple ballot, they gave you money." I am here to say I am on the Apple ballot, and no one has given me any money.
There's a lot of criticism. There's a lot of criticisms of that Apple ballot.
I know. There's a lot of criticism of the Apple ballot. I too, in fact, in the past, I have a group of friends and people in the community that have always said, "What do you think about this person?" Because I pay a lot of attention to politics in the county, and there's, I think everybody has to do their research. Whether a person is on the Apple ballot or not, you still have to do your research. The same as, I don't think, straight ticket voting, or any ways that people vote, you should always do your research on your candidates. I think it's important. It's important just to feel very comfortable in the decision you're making when you cast your ballot.
Yeah, and like I said, there has been some criticisms for it. What's that process like as far as getting the endorsement?
So you have to fill out an application like everything else in the world, and then you had to be interviewed, and they ask you questions. I think very relevant questions about your role, what you see, what you're passionate about, what your platform is, and then they make a decision. I don't know any more than that. I know I filled out the application, and their interview process.
Pascal's not a fan of it, but she says she has your support, so she will be supporting you. So
thanks, Pascal. I appreciate it.
So today's day one as far as Charles County voting.
Right, day one. I went and helped a bunch of young people. I got some young people excited. I was telling you how this is the first time my 18-year-old will be able to vote. And she's like, "Mom, I get to vote for you." I said, "Did you research me? Know what I'm about?"
Do you even know me?
Right. Do you know
what I stand for?
If I told her it was about uniforms, she'd probably not vote for me. Who knows? But, but she's out of high school now, so she doesn't. But so I went around encouraging some young people who were just recently graduated from high school. I was like, "Hey guys, go vote." So I told her to make a TikTok, because she said young people are not on Facebook. We're not reading that stuff. So
we actually don't tell anybody, but BNY got about 1,100 followers on TikTok.
Really?
I don't talk about.
Yeah, we're we don't use it very often, but we're there.
We went viral a couple times.
Yeah.
Young people are on TikTok and Instagram, and so I told my daughter, I was like, make a TikTok and an Instagram and tell your friends it's time to vote. Get out and vote. Before y'all get ready to go away to college, go vote.
Oh, TikTok.
I'm gonna read Laura's comment here. I remember the job of the EACC, support their members first. I am a EACC member, but look at the whole picture when I vote. So the Apple ballot is one piece of the info. I think it's a good way to look at it too as well. Pascal, follow me on TikTok. I will, Pascal. Absolutely. Yes. After this podcast.
I just try not to get sucked into the TikTok vortex. You're sitting there looking at 30-second videos for 4 hours.
Yeah, see, that's a problem right there. Like Vine from
it's fun,
years
though.
ago.
Some stuff is educational. You can find a little bit of education everywhere.
This is true.
Actually, some of the videos too, kind of to your point earlier about getting some of these children into like doing videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That they're extensive.
Yes.
Some of them are extensive.
And you can see, you can see kids make a whole movie almost right on their phone. On the phone, they can make a whole movie on the phone. Give them a production studio. Let's see. We can have some people come. The next EGOT winners came from Charles County.
Hey, I'm all for it. Start running this podcast in the morning, get a daytime Emmy.
Right?
So we can pull that
Brunch
off.
with BNY.
Yeah.
And then you have some interns out of Charles County Public Schools.
I've mentioned that before.
We've discussed this a couple
Yeah,
times.
absolutely.
Yeah,
we
let's get
are.
a couple interns.
Yeah, we are more than happy to offer our services to the good students of this county. So
If I'm elected, I'm gonna take you up on your offer.
come on, I'm saying it on here. Hold us to it.
I will hold
Absolutely.
you to it. We need some big production support in some of these schools.
So
we got a couple LLCs that we could get some interns for
hey,
You write,
within production.
yeah, you
Yeah.
write the grant, you get the money as an independent business owner. We bring the students, we bring it to Charles County, and then it costs us nothing. And we got your volunteer support.
and we're gonna talk about that too as well, because we get a grant and go from there.
Creative
Then
funding. Creative funding.
yeah,
I'm
next you
telling
know we're not gonna be here in this building.
We got a real building.
Yeah, right with our guy Will Bowser too as well. Quality Touch Studios in Plata.
There's an example of that in the counties adjacent to us. There's something called Junior Achievement. Junior Achievement of Washington is a program. And Junior Achievement of Washington, they have a financial park. They have one in Fairfax County.
Mm-hmm.
They have one in PG County. They have Montgomery County. And they actually have a building. Kids go and they learn about finance. They learn about budgeting, funding, business, entrepreneurship. I've taken my kids out of the county to participate in the one in Fairfax and the one in PG County. And it's all private funding. It's sponsored by Capital One. Capital One funds it in this area, and a lot of businesses like Accenture, Deloitte, and Booz, and a bunch of the consultant firms, they give money, and it's all about finance. They have a finance summit that they do in the summer. Kids come in, they are put into a corporation. So they group, you have a CEO, a CFO, head of marketing, have teams, and then they have to start a business in a week. They have to crowdsource and fund for their business to get it up and running, and then they're evaluated by some local business executives, and then someone wins. My oldest daughter participated in it back in, I think it was 2017 or 18, and her team won. She's the CEO of her team, and they
Oh wow, okay.
but the beauty of it is because it's corporate funded and corporate sponsored, it's a whole building, and everybody in the county could use it. They have one in PG County, they have one in Montgomery County. When my daughter participated, they wanted her to be an ambassador, bring it to Charles County. If I'm elected, I want to see that happen. Finance part.
That's important
Junior
too.
Achievement.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it teaches
Yeah, that's
everything,
huge.
options, funding. I mean, it teaches the business stuff that they really need to know, right? I understand, it's good to know how to write a check, but how many people are writing checks, right? You need to teach kids about how money moves.
The same amount writing in cursive.
Right. Yeah. For example, I was looking the other day at some scams, and the number one group that has been scammed during COVID with money is that the number one group was seniors, but the other group was young people. Young people, they're being scammed online with online jobs and being told, fill out this paperwork, you have a job. They were sending them money and telling the job was to take the money and get gift cards, a gift card scam. They said the Federal Trade Commission said the number one group of people that will fall into are young people. Young people thought, well, I got the money in my bank account, so it must be legit. They give somebody a gift card, and then it come back, and now their account is in a negative, and they don't know what happened. They need to know how money moves in the banking system. Up to 60 days, something can be reversed. Maybe that money wasn't real. That's what I mean about innovatively thinking about how to make sure kids are prepared for life.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Anything that gets
Young
our students
people getting
ahead.
scammed.
So.
Yes.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah,
They
and
need
that's
to-
wild
That's
too as
sad.
well. Yeah.
But it's all about funding. I mean, if you know how the banking system works, you know that money doesn't move like Cash App. Like, money doesn't move like Cash App, kids.
Yeah. Yeah, literacy is financial is very, very important.
Absolutely.
But I
Yeah.
can direct deposit in the Cash App.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's especially growing
Yeah.
up in
Do you have a
this
Cash App
internet era
card?
too as well. Yeah.
These kids, I mean, and you know, I don't even judge the kids for not knowing. I just feel like they don't know what they don't know. And then a lot of times we older people, we assume that they know. I assume nothing. I'm gonna tell you. And if you say I already knew, okay. But if you didn't know, now you do.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So let's say I'm obviously I'm District 2. I can't vote for you, but say you're a voter, live in District 1, still on the fence. What elevator pitch? What would you say to convince them to vote for you, or lay your platform out there for them to consider you at the ballot?
Okay. So I am looking for the vote of people who want to have someone that focuses on innovation and education, that understands that students come first, that understand that I believe in supporting teachers as educators. I also believe that we have to collaborate. Collaboration is important with the commissioners, even going up to, the state and getting funding, financing, making sure that things that we need are going to be heard. And then also, the last point for me is really, making sure that we have funding and we can sustainability for our programs, right? We can't start things in the community, use funding, and then once the funding from the blueprint dries up, that we don't have it anymore. So for me, it's about, making sure that these students have what they need at every level. It is really important for me to make sure that teachers and educators are supported. It's the collaboration across the county with all of those community stakeholders, commissioners, and then it's also making sure that, at the end of the day, that, we have innovation in our funding and our practices in order to sustain our education. So if you're on the fence and those things are important to you, I am looking for your support and vote. And then I'm, I want to be transparent. I'm approachable. I can talk to you about sports, but I can also talk to you about the sport of parenting, right? The sport of parenting. It is not for the faint of heart, but I do think it's important for all of these children to come back. Education, teachers are the first person you have to trust besides your parents, and you want that experience to be good because if they're educated well, they'll come back to the same community that they were raised in, and they'll want to raise their students. They help our tax bracket. That's why I'm here, passionate about education.
All right, there it is. Samichie Thomas, thank you very much for everything. Absolutely.
I really appreciate you inviting me, and I
Yes,
appreciate
100%.
all the listeners out there, everybody that really took the time out to listen and to ask comments and questions. So thank you so much as well.
So we go from here. We got 6 days off. We'll be back next week.
Oh, you got a little break.
Yeah, a little break.
Nice
We've
little
been working
vacation.
hard. I think what is this?
Third,
we did 3 podcasts
third
last
and-
week. We did 2 this week. That's 5 and probably maybe I'm just doing the math. What's that? Monday? What's today? Thursday?
I forgot even
11
what day
days,
it
something
is.
like that.
This is awesome, though. I mean, the
maybe
coordination.
more than that. I
is
don't know.
Great.
Yeah, it's been a lot. So we're want to take a little break. We gotta prepare for our next 2
Ricky's got to practice his cursive reading for the next couple days.
with Bowling and Collins. I think I'll be okay.
And you're
Now,
gonna get geared up for primary, right? For the
yeah,
You'll be
big
going live,
night.
right?
we are live. Yep. July 19th.
I'm
We'll be live that
excited.
night
I'm
too as well.
excited.
Yep. Allie Rock, Derek Terry will be in the building. Both friends of the podcast, so definitely looking forward to having them here. Next week we got Commissioner Collins, Commissioner Bowling coming on 13th and 14th. Commissioner Collins on the 13th, Commissioner Bowling on the 14th. So we'll announce those podcasts here soon
Great.
officially.
I'm gonna tune in.
Absolutely,
I'm
yeah.
always lurking in the background.
Yeah, I know.
I may be quiet because I like to listen before I speak, but
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun night too as well. Team No Sleep back-to-back interviews. Yeah, working hard, but not for the next couple of days. So
okay.
I'll be hey, best of luck to all the candidates. Best of luck to you too
Thank
as
you.
well.
Thank you. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
For
It's
sure.
good
Yeah.
to meet you both in person.
Yeah, for
Thank you,
sure.
thank you.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be an interesting cycle. The 19th too as well. I'm taking apologies.
You're good. You're good. You're
Yeah. What's up, Left Witch? Coming through in the fourth quarter, 1 minute left. But for the 19th, we'll be taking phone calls from the candidates. So if anybody just text me, want to call in, give their thoughts on their campaign, all for it. So
Okay.
we'll run it very organically, and then we'll go from there. So if you want to
the
call
best way to
in,
do it.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, feel free. Yeah.
I'm
Win or
excited.
lose, yeah, absolutely. You're more
Yeah.
than welcome to call in and come back too as well.
Yeah, and I'm really supportive of the school board just in general. I'm excited to see how it changes, with the addition of the new seats, right? I think that's going to be really great with the, before you used to just vote, just going down the list, just anybody. The fact that now it's really to the different districts. I think that gives everybody an opportunity to have some true representation and to bring it back to collaborate even better. So I think it's going to be good.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've enjoyed it.
It's gonna be a brand new school board essentially. So, well, it is gonna be a brand new. So it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting. I definitely had to make some school board meetings. Yeah, by that time I would have.
And whether you're
We
on
would
the
interview
school
the whole board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether you're on the school board or not, if you have a passion for education, jump right in there. You know, be the change you want to see, right?
Whenever we could have the underground mayor on.
But him. Everybody please, Pascal. Everybody please vote. Voting is July 7th today to the 14th. Yep, early voting. 3 sites too as well. I want to read those off.
Can I say that if
Please,
you know a young person that's 18 to 25, go grab them, take them to vote. They need it. They just need somebody to go with them. I know you can't buy a vote, so don't tell them who to vote for, but offer them some food. They might go. Give them some readers and take them to vote.
There's other ways you could bribe.
Yeah.
Sacred Heart Church Friendship Hall, Waldorf JC's, and the St. Joseph Parish Center.
And if you see me out in the community, wave, stop me, talk to me. You'll know it's me.
Yep. And voting sites are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Leftwich, I'm curious who you voted for. Let me hop in. Let's hop in the chat afterwards. I want to hear your thoughts on that too as well, and the whole process of today. I heard it wasn't a lot of turnout, but hopefully that changes. It's day one.
Day one. I mean, come on.
I'm me personally. The 19th.
Maybe
19th,
they're mailing them in. You know, people are getting mail-in ballots. So if you get your mail in, that's another thing. Young people, if you have a young person that's about to go away to school, make sure they fill out their paperwork so they can get their mail-in ballot. So if it comes to you, you can send it to them in school. They can send it back to you. They can send it in. Make sure they get their mail-in ballots. I know as a parent of kids who went off to college, you got to make sure they get their mail-in ballots. So I'm all about young people. Like, if we don't get our young people together, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to be in a nursing home and they're running the country if we haven't prepared them.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is.
Man, nothing more to say with that. Mank has me on speed dial. Hey, if he wants to call in that night, he's more than welcome to as well. I'm pretty sure I'll be talking to him.
Shout out to my man Mank.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you, Charles County. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you back on here July 13th,
yes, sir.
8 p.m.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ruben Collins. It'll be a fun night. So,
Okay.
yeah, let's see what the Commissioner President has to talk about. It'll be a very, very lively podcast.
Y'all sound a whole lot different out here than compared to in the headphones.
All right, we'll see y'all next time.